Hello.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Veronica.
Hi.
Hi, Veronica.
Hi, Ginny.
Hello, Naomi.
I'm her daughter, Elizabeth.
Hi, Elizabeth.
Hi. Oh, Ronnie, right?
Yeah, hi there, Naomi.
Hi, good to see you.
Well, so good to have you all join us for this event. I would ask that if everybody could put themselves on mute, so sometimes we get a little bit of an echo. And then towards the end, we'll have a question and answer session, or we can have a little bit more of a more conversational session towards the end. But I want to thank you all for joining us for this question and answer session with Shannon Braun, who is our director of our Center for Memory Support and Inclusion. Shannon has been with us about a year, and she brings really, I think, as many of you probably already know, a broad knowledge and a lot of expertise in the area of Alzheimer's and dementia. In her previous role as I can't remember the exact title, Shannon, at the Alzheimer's Association. Was
early stage program coordinator.
Great. So, and has been kind of in the world of social work for a while. So thank you all so much for joining us. And the Center for Memory Support and Inclusion was an initiative that we started about a year ago, right before the pandemic hit. So it's slowed a little bit of our progress as we rolled this out, but it's really the best of ERS's memory support initiatives, whether it be our intimate living environments. Sorry, I'm gonna put a few people on mute. Our intimate living environments, or our wonderful programming and therapy programs that we've developed over the years, or the training programs that we've developed for our staff and the family members and the broader community. And then it also includes some community outreach initiatives, particularly through our dementia inclusive Cincinnati efforts, where we partnered with others like the Alzheimer's Association of Greater Cincinnati and UC Health on really trying to be a resource for our community and some of the businesses out there by providing training or some programming as well. So we're excited to have Shannon with us, and so welcome, Shannon. And I wanted to just start off with a question. We particularly wanted to be, I think, informative in this time during the pandemic. A lot of us have been very close with our loved ones, and they may have seen some signs of change during the pandemic. And I was wondering if there's any signs that might lead people to maybe want to do some screening or some warning signs that about Alzheimer's and regarding Alzheimer's and dementia.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, thanks for having me. I recognize some old friends from the Alzheimer's Association, so glad to see some of you again. Yes, so I think this whole past year has brought challenges that we've never considered before, and a lot of times some health issues or other things that might be going on in the brain can be exacerbated by some of the issues that we've been seeing in some of the isolation. So certainly we notice changes in memory. So some of the warning signs that people, if they're thinking about, there might be some memory related issues. Short-term memory is usually impacted first, changes in language, maybe some changes in ability to follow directions, lots of kind of subtle changes that maybe you piece together little by little, and then looking back, you think, gosh, that's really been happening for a little while. So I think the fact that there's a lot of stress and a lot of isolation and breaks from our routine that we're used to, that can sometimes bring things to light, and it can make problems worse. One thing I do like to mention too, I think that all of that stress can impact all of us, whether we have changes happening in the brain or not. So, I talk to a lot of care partners that say, gosh, now I think that I'm having memory problems because I forgot, X, Y, and Z. And could be, but also could be stress, because, a lot of stress and issues with mental health can kind of mimic a lot of dementia changes too. So I do think it's important, if you're worried about your brain or cognition, memory, all of that, that it is just important to talk to your doctor about it. There are a couple screening tools that can be used to rule out other things like depression or stress and all of that. So I do think it's an important thing to kind of keep track of it a little bit and then refer to your doctor.
So as you mentioned, this experience is really, it can be very stressful and bring out some probably different behaviors and different signs and symptoms. And it's shown that caregivers really have had to pivot in ways that they've never had to do even prior to the pandemic. We all know it can be a little stressful, as caregivers with our care partners, but even our staff members have experienced this as well. So do you have any tips, in light of this very unique experience that we've all had over the years, that you can share with our audience?
Yeah, it's hard to even know yet, or, just try to calculate the impact of all of this. But I will say, just from a personal experience, I've always kind of really empathized with and valued caregivers and family caregivers, paid caregivers, anyone that serves that purpose. And I've always tried to understand the struggle, but I don't think that there's really been anything quite like this before. So if someone was really struggling last year, a year ago, 2 years ago with their caring, the lack of formal supports that have been able to be kept in place have really been astronomical. The lack of maybe family involvement that used to be there, with the added anxieties around the virus and not wanting to bring it in. It's a loss of both formal and informal supports for a disease progression that really hangs on all of those things. And as they say, takes a village. So I think first and foremost, something to keep in mind is just to be kind to yourself, to recognize that you do the best you can and take one day at a time, and really make time for self-care. And I know that's really hard to do as a caregiver, but make sure that you're taking care of yourself too, because if you're holding the whole household together and you're neglecting your own health in your caregiving journey, then it's really a recipe for disaster. So I think reaching out to people virtually, doing things like this, just hopping on a Zoom that you can learn a little bit of something, or make connections with other people in a way that's safe and makes sense to you, tapping into resources that are available, and then trying to keep as much of your routine going as you can, even if it's limited within your household. All those things I think are really important.
So, and one of the things you kind of mentioned, before the pandemic, there was a lot of supports out in the community, for those living with Alzheimer's and dementia and their care partners. And obviously some of those have gone away because of the in-person nature of many of those programs. And one of those was the various memory cafes that were running around, that were around town, whether that be through the Alzheimer's Association or the Dementia Inclusive Cincinnati. I know we were very involved in some programming at the library system. But have any of those kind of gone virtual, or any other resources gone virtual that you're aware of that, or are starting to maybe come to life again now that
Yeah.
we're on the end of the pandemic?
I think so. I think that it's yet to be seen how things will kind of reemerge, but you know, from being involved in this work for a while, I recognize, you know, some people really relied on weekly outings or activities that were, you know, programs in place, weekly, monthly, had groups together with the memory cafes or different programs that the museums offered or whatever. A few of the libraries did keep their memory cafes going virtually. I think at the beginning, like we all were struggling. None of us knew what Zoom was before this happened. So, and we really kind of didn't know how a virtual meeting would impact someone with dementia. And I've seen kind of both things. I've seen people really engage as much as they can, and then other people that really kind of struggle to understand you know, what's going on. I think that the virtual piece can be a challenge, but I think that there's, and just professionally, other friends of mine that work in the dementia field, there is a lot of fire burning to kind of reignite some of this programming and a newfound need to get out in the community and reconnect with people. So I hope that once things start opening up a little bit, that there will be more and more of that. With the memory cafes and other programs that we've really tried to pivot and keep going, I think people are doing that as much as they can and connecting with something that makes sense to them. Something that's been interesting to me, I think, is a lot of the work that we've done with the churches in educating the churches and about dementia and how their congregations can be more dementia inclusive. I think churches in general have understood the pandemic and the isolation that has happened in a different way. So, you know, everyone has felt this isolation on some level this past year, and people that have dementia and experience dementia as a family kind of feel that isolation a lot too. So there's been some common denominators, and I think I've been able to express the need for dementia inclusivity in a way that now makes sense to people on a different level, because they kind of understand a little bit from their own perspective, even if it's not related to dementia. So there's a lot of different things I think in the works, and I think that hopefully things will really get going here soon too.
And just a follow-up question I saw from one of our audience members is, what is a memory cafe?
Yes. Okay. So a memory cafe, it's an interesting concept. It's something that's not necessarily unique to Cincinnati or to the libraries, but something that has been going on for quite some time. It's just a gathering space. I think the libraries have been a natural place. So there are 5 libraries in the Hamilton County system that host memory cafes or had been prior to the pandemic. It's a gathering space of people that have dementia and their care partners come together, meet each other, mingle, maybe have coffee and donuts. Maybe they do an art project. Maybe they have a singer come in and sing to them. So some of those have been shifting to virtual settings. Some of them have kind of taken pause a little bit. So a memory cafe is just kind of a gathering space meant to include people with dementia and their care partners as a way to promote socialization.
Great, thanks for answering that. So at the top of the session, I was describing ERS's Center for Memory Support and Inclusion, and one of those items that I was describing was about some of the training programs. And there's a training program very unique to ERS that was created within the last couple of years based on some of our experience. And that training program is called Yes And the reason it's called Yes And is it's based on improv techniques, almost, you know, from the comedy world, that actually we have found really help in working with caregivers and their partners. And I was wondering if you could kind of describe that program and how it's impacted not only the ERS caregivers and staff, but even maybe some of the families that we've worked with as well.
Sure. So improv is a great tool to use. I think it's used in a lot of different industries, but it's a great tool for caregivers, especially for those working with dementia. So the concept of improv, and if you're familiar with Second City in Chicago or any improv comedy troupes, that show Whose Line Is It Anyway that was on years ago, they use improv strategies. And really the tenet of improv is the yes and concept. So it's a way to kind of frame your interaction with somebody else. So if someone presents a reality to you, you agree and join their reality. So the yes is I'm agreeing with you, and the and is and I'm adding to it. So I'm joining your reality. So the way this makes sense for people with dementia is because they're often existing in a little bit of a different reality than we are. Their truths are different than our truths. They might feel like it's a different year that they're living in. They might think that there are other people around that we're not seeing. So a lot of the strategies that we have in working with people that have dementia is recognizing that they no longer have the ability sometimes to join our reality. So kind of letting them know what the truth is and what's real and what's not real isn't effective. So the way that we can have meaningful engagement with them is to join their reality. So the concept of improv and using those yes and strategies are really tools for the care partner to be able to make it a little bit easier for them. It can be hard to join someone else's reality. Our natural instinct is to correct someone when they say something that doesn't make sense. So if someone with dementia were to say to me, the sky is purple, maybe my natural instinct would be to say, no, it's blue. But if I'm using some improv strategies, even though it's something I know is not true, I can say, yes, and isn't it beautiful? And then use that as a way to talk about the sky and how much we love the sky and, oh, there's clouds over there. So what you're doing is you're creating a way for people to have meaningful engagement with each other and keep a positive interaction going. The way that we normally would correct and move on, that really just cuts off the communication and ends the engagement. It might even agitate someone that then you're starting to argue about what color the sky is, and that's just meaningless. So the improv concept is a good one. I think you don't always have to say the words, it's just an attitude that you're just there to agree and go along with. Sometimes it takes some practice, but I have found that it's a really good strategy that really works for people. So yeah, it's neat and it's exciting to know that staff and caregivers around ERS are utilizing those strategies too.
Yeah, and I think it's important to just underscore, you were just saying this, that there's so many times that, as you mentioned, there, someone that's living with Alzheimer's dementia may be in a different place. And there's such a tendency for those of us that may not have known before to correct or to try and orient them back to reality, but that's not always necessarily what's needed in the time or place, right?
Exactly, right. Yeah, reality orientation was something that was used years and years ago to bring someone back to reality, and it was viewed as a best practice at the time. And now I think we understand dementia a little bit better, that it does no good to remind someone that their husband passed away many years ago or whatever. So we say when we know better, we do better. And I think that we now have these other tools that help us with other ways to orient somebody and to engage with them rather than that reality orientation.
So Shannon, I'm going to shift gears a little bit and get down to more of a personal level. You've been with the organization now about a year, and you've been working in this space of Alzheimer's and dementia and supporting families for some time now. And what do you find rewarding about the work that you do and supporting our organization, the staff, and then particularly the families and our residents?
Good question. I find so much of it rewarding. I've run a lot of support groups in the past, and what it comes down to ultimately is everything I know about dementia I've learned from working with people that have it or people that are caring for people that have it. So I feel very grateful to be where I am because of the generosity of sharing experience. People share their experiences with me and make connections. I grew up with, my grandmother had dementia. She lived with my family when I was in high school. And, I look back as a 17-year-old, I was definitely not helpful. I, made so many mistakes. And I think in engaging with other people that have had dementia, especially with my history and working with early stage, I've really been able to talk to people with dementia about what it's like to have dementia. And that's been very enlightening to me. And I think such a unique thing to get to learn. And so I've really valued that. And I just love the people. I love the people. And like I said earlier, I have such a place in my heart for people that are caring for family members and friends and whatever the relationship is. Caring for anybody is a challenge. Caring for somebody that doesn't know that you're caring for them or doesn't remember why you are or is frustrated with the caring, it adds another level onto it that I think just really necessitates the kind of support that that I'm here to provide and that a lot of us are here to provide. So I really feel grateful for the opportunity to work in this space, and I've learned so much along the way, and I continue to learn new things every day. So that's it keeps me going. It's exciting to me.
Mm-hmm. So again, shifting gears, I know this year has really presented a lot of wrenches in all of our plans, and I know you've been over at the Dupree Cottages quite a bit, which is at one of our nursing care center on the Dupree House campus, which serves those with some with dementia and many without. But it sounds like there was a need at some point to have some connection with families, and I wondered if you could kind of talk about the support program that developed over this past year and how that helped families kind of get through the time that through the pandemic.
Sure. Yeah. So, it's been a weird time to live in a nursing home. It's been a weird time to work in one and to have a loved one in one. And so something that happened early on when the doors kind of closed and the families that were used to coming every day and really, you get to know the staff, the other residents. You don't just come visit your mom, you visit your mom's next door neighbor and the staff that care for them. So first of all, one of my jobs that I had to pivot to do when I first was hired is keep people connected to their family members via Zoom calls, FaceTime calls, window visits, really any way that we could make a connection, we did. And that was so important. And then there was still something missing though, still a piece of not really feeling like the families knew what was going on. They could peer in the windows, they would. So I started with Michelle, the social worker. I started these coffee chats. We would just meet once a month, and it was an opportunity for mostly they were daughters of Dupree Cottage residents. And just get together and share their experiences with one another. So it was just that extra support for each other, to talk about how difficult it's been or to give each other pointers. Just last month, we had a call, and one of the daughters, that things have started opening up and there are indoor visits allowed, but staying 6 feet apart with the testing, and it's a little awkward. So they've been dying to get in, and then once they get in, it's this kind of awkward, sterile thing. So we were talking to the daughter about maybe giving her mom a photo album to hold in her hand. So it's something to do with her hands and some topic that they can engage with, because there is a little anxiety about reconnecting in those ways too. So little tips like that they've been able to connect and help each other through the process. You know, support groups are very near and dear to me. So I've always been a big proponent of the values of supporting one another through challenges, especially when you really don't know until you go through it. And I can say that myself too. I don't know because I've never been through it, but putting people together that are going through it at the same time can really be valuable. So just trying to keep people connected, I think, is the bottom line.
Right. Thank you. And I guess just to build on this, I know I didn't put this in my questions, but I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. But I know you can handle this one really well. So I know part of your role has been to not just support our staff and the family members and help with the programming, but there's also an outreach part in your support of the community. And I wondered if you could kind of describe some of those things that you're here for the greater community to support and help with as well.
Sure, yeah. So with the Center for Memory Support and Inclusion, it's really kind of an internal support, education, all those things for people that live and work and are connected to people that live at the ERS communities. And then there's also this piece of out in the community with Dementia Inclusive Cincinnati, trying to get Cincinnati on board with being more dementia inclusive at restaurants and libraries and museums and the zoo and all of that good stuff. And then in addition to that, I think just wanting to be a resource. I think that, as I said, I've learned a lot along the way, and sometimes all it takes is just a sounding board. If you just say, here's what I'm experiencing with my spouse, what do you think? Or what's my next step? So I think a lot of that transition planning, listening, problem solving, I've gotten a lot of referrals just with meeting residents here that have a friend that has a friend that just needs to talk to somebody. You know, this was a job that took a left turn in the last year. So I think that I feel very open to whatever it turns into and however I can support people that are going through the journey of dementia in whatever stage that is, and with whatever support that looks like for them. If I don't know the answer, I know other people that are connected, and just really trying to build up that support for this specific group of people in our community.
Great. Sorry, to mute there, the dog was barking once again in our house. So that's wonderful. And that kind of comes to, brings us to a conclusion of the questions I had for Shannon. And I wanted to open it up to all of you to see if you had any comments or questions or just things that you wanted to maybe discuss in this forum, especially having our expert Shannon here as well today.
I'm Nami Gerwin. Thank you, Shannon. I've wondered as my husband's in the memory care unit at Marjorie P. Lee, and I've wondered about the other families, which we haven't had a chance to meet, of course, because we haven't been on the premises very much. Happily, I'm allowed to visit because of something called compassionate care visits, which is when your person is not doing very well and they're, anyways, so that's what I've been allowed to do, and I'm grateful for that. But I've wondered how it might be if the other people's relatives could be on a network somehow. Those who wanted to, many probably wouldn't want to, but they might have relatives not here. Maybe they have relatives out of town, I don't know. Mm-hmm. Or maybe they have relatives here who aren't allowed to visit. But if there could be some kind of forum offered, occasionally, that they would know someone beside that body in the room that I pass, which is a sad picture. Now my husband is not, he's verbal and he's standing up, and he's not, as many of those people are, he's not that advanced in his Alzheimer's, but that really doesn't matter in a way. I mean, I think there would be a common thread. And since we are so powerless over, not to mention the outcome of this illness, but even to visit half the time, or to be there, or to meet the staff caring for them, which is so valuable. Any kind of network would be, I would think, would be a nice offering.
Yes, I agree, Naomi. And first, I just want to acknowledge the unique challenge of placing your loved one in a facility in the middle of a pandemic. I think that itself, it's hard in normal circumstances. And like you said, you don't even really know the people that care for him, and the other residents' family members that you would normally get to know along the way. So I hear what you're saying, and I definitely agree. And I find value in the fact that you are interested in that. So, what I was saying earlier about the importance of making connections, and how we have tried that at the Creek Cottages, I definitely see value in offering something like that at Marjorie P. Lee, and maybe per household, so you can get to know some of the other people. So I'm going to write that one down, and I will get working on that, because I'm with you 100%. I think there's so much value in that, and I'll connect with you. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Shannon, this is
Yeah.
Veronica Steffen. Hi.
Hi, Veronica.
Hi. Now, just before COVID, Liz Archer and I were in the process of planning and starting a group, a family support group at Marjorie P. Lee. And I was just wondering, does that look like that's possible to happen anytime soon? Because I'm still interested in doing it. I haven't spoken with Liz recently, but I see she's on here too.
She is on here. Yes. Well, I think that I don't know the ins and outs of when things will be open enough to have that support group in person at Marjorie Lee. But, I think Naomi just answered the question that it would definitely be welcomed. It's valued. It would probably have to start off virtually and then see where it goes. But, I think at the very beginning of all of this, I wasn't sure how support groups would look on Zoom. And to be honest, they're a little bit awkward. It's the strangeness that maybe we've all grown a little bit more accustomed to, but there's still wonderful value in it. There's deep connections that can be made over a computer screen. So I think that if you're open as a facilitator to do something virtually, that great, let's do it.
Yeah, I've been participating in a support group on Fridays with Sally Van Leeuwen, who was at the Xavier, and now a few people who were in our group when I was in your group, Shannon, back at the Alzheimer's Association, they're in that group also, because we brought them in, and it's worked out very well for virtual. And Sally leads it, so I'm not the facilitator, but I certainly feel like I can do it now and see how it's done.
Yes, I agree. Good. We'll
So
be
let
in
me
touch,
know.
Veronica. I'll send you an email.
Okay.
Okay.
That's the support group is a lifesaver. I mean, it's been a lifesaver for me during this.
Yeah.
Sure,
I'm glad.
particularly during this time, Veronica, it's really been needed. I can imagine.
I didn't hear you, Brian.
I said particularly during this last year, I'm sure and going forward, I'm sure it's been very helpful over the past year, but probably more so going forward. As you know, we're seeing numbers decline and things are opening and guidelines are changing, but to Shannon's point, we're still not out of the woods yet, and we may need to start in a virtual way before we get back in person. Are there any other questions? Any other comments? Anything anybody wants to share? We certainly want to provide people a forum to talk right now.
I'll share something else. I know ERS communities did not have any respite care available, and you don't do that. But the Kenwood did, and I did have my husband go a few weeks ago because I was going to be very busy with things, and I needed a break.
Mhm.
And it really worked out very well. Now I know they're your competitors, but I'm not interested in going there long term. But having respite care available is really a nice service if that's at all possible for your communities to do.
Well, sure, we can certainly take that under advisement. We also have some great partners that we work with that may be a good referral in the future. But yeah, we can certainly take that in advisement, especially as part of our bigger initiative for the Center for Memory Support and Inclusion.
But can I ask, Veronica, what were the parameters? Was it a week, or did they have a certain length of time that was required?
They said that they usually do a month is the minimum, but I said, no, we're not interested in a month. I really only needed a week. And because they had no one else using that as bed at the time or any reservations, they said they would do it for a week. And it was after when things have, loosened up a little bit. So I don't know, if that would have been available during COVID at all, but
Sure.
It worked out. And it was a little looser. It was in their assisted living part, not in their memory care part, but in the assisted living. And that was enough for him right
Good.
now. But for a caregiver to get some break when you do not have any but family in town, it really was very good for me.
Good. I'm glad you did that.
Yeah, it worked out. And he seemed to be okay with it too. So
Good.
Perfect.
Any other questions or comments? Well, I'd just like to take a moment to make a few introductions here. Karen Immel is our Community Relations Director at Marjorie P. Lee. Karen was having a little technical difficulties at the beginning, and I just wanted to make an introduction. And Karen, did you want to give a greeting?
Yes, I'm so sorry that I missed my introduction. Brian, thank you. You did an awesome job. I could hear it. I just couldn't join it. So I know most of you, and then we've gone through Marjorie P. Lee. We did right before the pandemic. We opened up 37 new memory support apartments, and we're finally moving people in again, and it's fun to see them all connect and thrive. If I can do anything for any of you in the future, please let me know. We are open for tours again, and limited people. Can't bring a group, but so finally, maybe we're going to be on the other side of this before we know it. Thanks, Brian.
Sure. And then I also want to just welcome our Community Relations Director at the Dupree House, Jenny Tarr, is here. Hi, Jenny. Good to see you. You're on mute.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Ginny.
It is nice to see people again.
And I agree that we love having Shannon with us and appreciate her expertise. And it is important to us to learn as much as we can about dementia and how to respond to it and how to help others. And I appreciate knowing more myself. I'm dealing with a lot of the same issues many of you are. And I just wanted to say that we too have some openings now. Our situation at Dupree is different than Marjorie, where they have their specialized areas for many levels of care. Dupree is not quite the same. It is geared more toward independence. But there are times when it's possible for a well spouse to live with a spouse that is having challenges and can do fine and do well for quite a long time. So that would be our way to accommodate someone with more mild memory issues. And then we do have the nursing care cottages that can accommodate any kind of nursing care needs. So I think for most communities, because of the pandemic, we did not allow move-ins. So we do have more openings now than perhaps ever before. So if we can be of help to any of you, please call myself or Karen. We'd love to be of help. Thanks and have a great day and go Reds.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, the ball game will be on in about an hour. So little did I remember that we scheduled this on the same afternoon as opening day, but that's okay. We so appreciate you all attending. And I just want to say a special hello to, excuse me, my friend Kate Powers. So good to see you, Kate. Thank you for joining us today. Kate's a resident at Marjorie P. Lee, and it's been a while since we've been able to talk. So I just wanted to kind of end things. We've been doing these series of virtual events in lieu of being able to get together in person. We had last month we had a great virtual event with our wellness director Chloe Huff, and the month before we had our medical director Dr. Jeff Schlottecker, who talked about kind of the importance of the vaccine and the safety of the vaccine and answered a lot of questions for folks. So we've actually recorded those and can make those available, and we'll send those out as well as a recording of this, and feel free to share this with your friends and family. We're really putting out more and more information on our blog, and we're doing a podcast. Shannon and I did a podcast last month as well. And then we have these live recordings of kind of question and answers as well that we're going to put out. So we'll send this out very soon. And I want to thank you all so much for attending, and please feel free to reach out to all of us or any of us at any time with any of your questions. We really want to be a resource for everyone.